Welcome to Still Talks. I'm sorry that we haven't updated a video in a really long time, but that, my friends, is what we call reality, and we've all been very busy doing other things. But we are also very blessed that God has brought us all together again to do another video, and hopefully we'll be able to keep doing videos. So I want to dive right in with talk number 5, entitled Pros and Cons of a Church Family. This is going to be a lot less theological or doctrinal and more focused on just life. So it's a topic that's become very relevant to my life recently, so I'm hoping that you'll have some pointers as well. We're going to start by expressing the church, which the Bible refers to as a body, a bunch of different parts that come together to serve the same purpose, which is furthering the gospel and the message of Christ. And Christ is the head of that. And I like to think of all the churches dotted around the whole world as cells, just the smallest component of life, but still life. And that's so amazing. That metaphor is so amazing because God has given us all different functions, different ways to come about doing the gospel, but we all serve the same purpose. And I just think that's an amazing thing. So we'll get right to it with pro number 1 of a church family being family. A church should be somewhere where we are accepted and advised and aided on our path to discovering God. It's somewhere where we shouldn't have to hide who we are or be ashamed of who we are, but a place where we can become greater than what we are. My favorite verse, or one of my favorite verses, is Galatians, the 6th chapter. And it goes just like this: Brothers and sisters, if someone is caught in a sin, you who live by the Spirit should restore that person. And verse 2 continues, carry each other's burdens. And in this way, you will fulfill the law of Christ, which is to love one another as He loved us. And I think that's what a church can be if we're going about it the right way. And this brings us to con number 1, which is organized religion. Now, anytime that you get a group of people together, you can end up with groups like the KKK or the Nazi Party, who have a terrible agenda, or just who have an agenda. Churches can end up being exclusive, where they don't allow certain people to be a part of their group, or they can brainwash people into living a certain way that isn't a godly way. And that's unfortunately the world that we live in, because we are human. However, here's pro number 2, which, if you do find the right church, you can find your ministry, which is, like, a church is supposed to be a platform or a stage or a launch pad where you find where you fit in and then can do your ministry. I mean, you could work with youth, the elderly, anti-religious, afraid to be religious, the broken, any kind of people, and do what you need to be doing for God. However, this leads to con number 2, which is being so involved in a church that you're not listening to God anymore and what God has to say. One of the greatest things I think Christ ever did was going on His own personal sojourn into the wilderness for 40 days. And He wasn't part of a church body like we think of. He wasn't necessarily part of anything. He was by Himself, and He was being tested. And I think that's something that we all should relate to or try to find. That way we know exactly what we need to be doing, where we need to be doing. Don't be afraid to leave one church and go somewhere else. Don't be afraid to start your own church if you feel the call. Because if you are not being fed where you are, then it's probably a telltale sign that you shouldn't be there. So here's another point. Paul, the apostle, and Barnabas were 2 really great friends in the church and were spreading the gospel and everything, but they had a falling out because of Barnabas's cousin Mark, who was kind of a wimp and didn't want to travel as much as they did, basically. This is a very simplified version. And this caused a rift between Paul and Barnabas. However, even though they separated and went their separate ways, they still became the great people they were meant to be. And Mark actually wrote the Gospel of Mark. So, in summary, God wants to work with us all on an individual level. And He puts us together to further His cause. So find where you belong. Find a home. Find where you are accepted and loved and where you can do what you are meant to do. Because that's what God wants for all of us. So this week's song that I would really like you to meditate on, because it speaks so much about life, is Bones by Hillsong United from their album Aftermath. So I hope that you get to thinking and you find where you need to be. We'll see you next time.